One of the best bits of advice I have ever been given in terms of triathlon training is that consistency is key. So whether you're training for your first triathlon or for the Olympic Games, I really believe it matters just the same. So today, I thought I'd run through some of the key things that you want to think about when you're planning and structuring your training around work, life, and other commitments to really make sure that you're getting that consistency and every ounce you possibly can out of your training. So let's get planning. Now, when I used to coach athletes, one of the first things that I would do with them is make sure that I understand a few fairly basic but incredibly important things. One of which is their current level of fitness, also their background within triathlon or just sport generally, their goals and ambitions, and most crucially, their current commitments within life, family, work, etc. You need to make sure that you do this, you assess this yourself before planning or structuring any training, because otherwise that consistency that I mentioned earlier will go totally out the window within just a couple of days of starting. Now, I know this sounds incredibly geeky, but I'd actually suggest making a physical note of this, writing it all down so you can easily just refer back to it if you need to. I'd also suggest actually writing out a diary or making a spreadsheet where you can list out your commitments during the week, and then you can quite visibly and easily see where that free space and time is so that you can do your training. And that sort of forms the basis of how you can start planning and structuring your training. With that done, you can then move into the day-to-day structure and the content of your sessions. And I'm actually going to split this up into 6 main tips, starting with the end date. Now, I know we're kind of starting backwards here, but you ultimately need to know what you're working towards. Is it a 5K, a marathon, a sprint distance triathlon, or an Ironman? Because, I mean, quite obvious, but that is going to drastically change and depict how you plan and structure your training. It's also going to give you a physical end date, something to build your training towards and focus on, as well as also just reminding yourself of why you're doing this. So with that sorted, now let's get stuck into the nitty gritty. So using that diary, spreadsheet, or something similar like I discussed before, we can start allocating time to train and also the volume, rather than just plucking any old training plan out from the internet and trying to force it into our lives and making it work. But before we get stuck into and delve into the details of the workouts, it's actually best to start planning how many workouts we want to do in a week. And basically you want to start off with something that's comfortable and achievable, and then build on from there. And on the whole, this is quite simple. I'd suggest going for an even split between the 3 disciplines. So for instance, if you're going to do 6 workouts per week, you do 2 swim, 2 bike, and 2 run. Pretty straightforward, really. If obviously it doesn't quite work out an even split with how many workouts you plan on doing in a week, maybe just prioritize those weaker disciplines and you can do an extra workout there. Then, if you like, using that spreadsheet or diary, you can then start working out where those workouts fit best into your week around your work and day-to-day commitments, making sure you don't forget things like getting to a swimming pool and the travel time that's involved in them. Well, now let's talk about the frequency and the duration of your workouts, because if you're new to triathlon, it's actually better to do shorter duration workouts but more frequently. So there's never that much time between each of your workouts. The same applies if you have a particular weakness such as swimming. If, on the other hand, your limiting factor is your endurance, or maybe you've entered a long distance event such as an Ironman, you may want to focus more on the longer workouts less frequently. Whichever route you decide to go down, the most important thing is that you keep a track of your volume. You're never progressing more than 10% in terms of your volume week in, week out. On top of that, I'd also suggest only doing 2 sessions per day as an absolute maximum. Anything beyond that, you tend to just see the consistency tail off as you're trying to just cram workouts in and around your life and other work commitments. And following on from that, you want to make sure that each of your workouts has a purpose and a goal. This is so important. I can't stress the importance of this enough, because so many people just head out and aimlessly cycle or run without really having any understanding of what they're trying to accomplish and how that fits into their week. Whereas if you really want to improve as quickly and efficiently as possible, you want to be focused in those sessions and really nail what that session is after. Now, that doesn't mean that every session needs to be hard, because actually an easy aerobic swim is still focused and good quality. You just want to make sure that you've got a good mix within your training that is well focused. That means that in your swimming, for instance, you may have an easy aerobic swim, you may have a speed swim, you may have a strength swim, but you're arriving at each of those knowing what you need to achieve, why you're doing that session, and really nail it. And that leads us on to recovery. And I don't think I really need to explain the importance of recovery, yet so many of us, myself included, are terrible at doing it. Now, if you really want to improve and perform, you want to absorb and adapt all that hard training you've been doing. So what I normally suggest is that after every third week, you take a recovery week. And that would normally start with perhaps a day off, and then a much lower and easier week in terms of volume and intensity. If you like, you can also take a day off each week. I know many people that do that, and that just allows them to keep the consistency there. And then day to day, you do just want to make sure that you're not backing up hard workouts that are working similar muscle groups, particularly with the cycling, the running, because not only you're not going to get the quality out of those workouts, but you could end up digging yourself a bit of a hole. And finally, be prepared to adapt and change your training plan and structure. Just because you laid your training plans out maybe a week or so in advance does not mean that they're set in stone. So many top pro athletes are continually adapting and changing their training plan and structure to make sure that they get the most out of it. I mean, you may have suddenly a last minute thing come up with work, or some family commitments just pop up last minute. Don't just simply accept that you're going to have to miss your sessions and move on and carry on with the rest of your training plan. In some cases, you may be able to quickly adapt and change your training plan, still get perhaps a key workout in, or the quality there in some way or some form. I hope that has helped today. If you have any questions, maybe they're personal questions for yourself, drop them in the comments section below. If you've enjoyed today's video, make sure you give it a like, and if you are not doing so already, make sure you give GTN a follow on social media and hit that subscribe button just down below.